Hey people, hopefully you just came from part one of this, and we just went through the first two lines, and I'm gonna hit this again. And what I did is I mirrored this in some letters that you recognize. It says to make the dibber, from the yell, to claim, to make rebud the dibrum, the ever moving language of the Allah, to bind the knowledge from to begin, the commands. And then this S here, this other S, it means there was a seal there. And we were looking at a seal, looked something like this, probably very similar to this. And then you was reading this under that picture. And it reads backwards here, the icon to make you the keel, the backbone, to raise a vix, the marks from the mix, the rim from the bite of Obadiah. This is what they call the Egypt from the house of bondage. But what it's saying is the mixed rim from the bite. And this is the bite, and the mixed rim means that all these letters aren't going to line up, and that's why you have all the stars in here, and you read crossways. You got to know the codes, which ones to read. And then and this Obadiah is the bite we're looking for. So I was born a slave. I know what it's like to be a slave. And I've been in the construction business since I could count. I joined the Navy at 17 to get away from it and go travel the world. And then I rode some ships as a merchant. And then I've been back building since. And I've been self-employed for 25 years. And I know for a fact that you can't get nothing out of slaves. You can't hardly pay somebody to do good work. But this Obadiah, most of the time you see it, it's going to mean servants or the slaves is what King James give it. And most of the time it'll change up, but most of the time when you're looking across in the Greek, they're called the paids. And neither one of those comes anywhere close to what we would think is slave. And this is your Obide form. Your Obide form is right here. It's the I and the D. And this was the slavery. They was same as we are today. They were slaves to money. And so these Egyptians, with their superior knowledge, they would cook up some perfume and go and enslave the women with perfumes and drugs and bring them over, and then all the men come right on over there to see the women, and the only way you get to see the women is with Obadiah. You got to have Obadiah in your pocket, and the only place to get Obadiah is out there in the field. And there's no other way this could have happened. This is just not. It's not physically, economically possible. And if you got no guns, your slaves are toting spears and whips, and all these guys toting bricks are all built like Lou Ferrigno, and they ain't gonna put up with that shit. You know, you've got twice as many mouths to feed. In order to have enough slaves, you're gonna have to have as many masters or his slaves to watch that many people. You got twice as much mouths to feed, plus you have to pay the masters over them. It just didn't happen. It's not going to work. Construction can't work that way. You got to pay your people. And that's what the Greek says. The Greek says they were the paids. And the Hebrew says they were working for the money. Working hard for the money. So this third line here, this is low, L-A, and it's pronounced low. And this is the one that King James says means thou shalt not, and through the Bible it'll mean not or no. And it's never meant no. It means low. It means beware or be aware of. As in low, you sleep with dogs, you'll wake up with fleas, you know. And so it doesn't mean no, thou shalt not sleep with dogs. It means just be aware of that. If you sleep with dogs, you liable to wake up with fleas. You know, if you ain't scared of fleas or you already got fleas, you might want to sleep with that dog. You know, it's on you, but I load you. I let you know. I warned you. Beware. And so this is one that says, thou shalt have no other gods before me. And what it's saying is low. Low means no, as in K-N-O-W. You know. No to make the eye click. This is read back both ways. The K-L-K, the click. From the yell, from the gods of the heavens. And this one's backwards too. From the jara. And this jara, J-R-H-A, this is an ancient word, and it means from what's left over. If we pour a bunch of these seals out on the table, and I tell you which ones to pull out, the jara is the seals left over. Or if I tell you which letters to pull out and then read from the jara, you're reading from the letters that are left over, is what that means. And that's where your word Jeremiah come from, and to work the remains, what's remaining. And you'll see it here, this Jeremiah, when you hit this line here and you're reading this backwards, it's going to come all the way to here, and you're reading it from the Jeremiah. So this says to low, to know, that to make the eye click from the yell, and that's turning your clock. You know, all the angels have a certain time to work, and you keep turning that clock. It keeps clicking from the jara, from the remaining. And this is all, or to see the bind in place, all in place. And remove the ones I told you to, and then the rest of them are all in place to read. So here in the Greek, I made a mistake here. This should read S-O-I. When I seen this U down here, I'm moving fast. I make a mistake sometime because they have Sue as U, but Sue is S-U is Sue is U. And I explained a couple videos ago that ancient Greek is the only place in the world that we means no and nay means yes, and that's because that's a lie, and they had to do that in order to change the meaning. If you believe that nay means yes and we means no, you never get laid in France. And it's just natural. Even if a child didn't know language and you were pushing them on a swing and they're having fun, they're going to say we. And when they get scared, they're going to say nay, no. And even if a kid had no training in language, it's natural. They say these things, mama and papa. It's just natural. And I know this for a fact. I got a 5-year-old spiritual advisor I went to see the other day, and everybody that knows her swears that she got reincarnated from her grandmother that died in the same house about 7-8 months before she was born, and she tells me some crazy stuff sometime, and so she was telling me the other day that she was explaining to me where 5 years old, she's explaining to me where the understanding of language comes from, and she didn't have all the lingo down, but she was pointing at her solar plexus, and she says that the understanding of language starts at your solar plexus, and then she says it moves up to your she was holding her hand like you would show a water level up to her throat chakra, and then she moves it up to her brow, and she was telling me that it starts here in your gut, and then it moves to your throat where you think about the words, and then it moves to your brow when you have understanding. And I asked her, where does she get this? And she says, I just know. Sometimes she tells me her dreams, and she always has some crazy stuff people would think. But it's hard to write this alchemy. And like I say, few people could read it. Like Toph said, few could read it, and very few could write it. And I've tried to write it, and I could poke a couple words out with meaning, but it is difficult. And I got to thinking about it, and she was right. That you get that gut feeling of a thought, and if you move it up into your throat chakra and you turn it into language, and then you look at the letters in the language, and to understand it, to move it up into your eye chakra. But this week is what it sounds like. It means small, we, and it says we give the Santi Soy Theo of Etheroid Plane them C2. It's we give the Sun Tai. The soy is like a tributary. It's like a small road coming off a main road, and each carrio has its own little soy of the Theo, the Theo, the God of the ethereal plane that they see to, and ethereal plane. Ethereal plane is the fourth plane. It's the first, second, third are the solid, liquid, and gas, and the fourth plane is the spiritual plane, and that's what it's talking about. So we give the Sun Tai to its own little tributary of the Theo, of the ethereal plane that them see to, that them see over. So down here at 4, it low, to know, to learn, to know the mark wash of the click pistol, to bind the speckle of the subtle. And then we have no period here, and it's going to keep on going. To bind the speckle, the subtle, in the plume of Jara, and the plume remaining from the yell, from the representations of the gods of heaven, from the Jara, from the yell, and when you're reading this backwards, you just ignore all the everything but the periods. Then all the A and everything will just read straight backwards. To bind the speckle of the subtle, a subtle hint, a little speckle in the paint, in the plume Jara, in the plume remaining, from the yell to Klee, to attach, Kle, to attach, to Klee, to make the jaw, to make and this is probably the name of the carrio is pointing to. And so this lick pistol is this is the representation of the lick pistol here, and this is also it, and it's also it represents a pistol and mortar, and that's what this is supposed to be. It was as a stick, and it had a mash at one end and a scraper at the other, and then you had this little stick with 2 or 3 little bowls for grinding your paints up or your herbs, and it represent the ashu, and then it had this little leather bag tied to it to keep your herbs in, and so it's telling us that the color here is going to be subtle in the speckle, and we're looking for the one that's subtle, but this is all deteriorated too much. We won't be able to tell. Maybe after a while of studying and from knowledge just bled over, we'll figure it out. But that's what it's saying here. Low, to know the mark wash of the click pistol, to bind the speckle of the subtle. It's going to be a subtle clue in the plume, Plom, the plume of jar of the remaining, and and if you wiki Jeremiah and look at his images, and you see the spelling of it there, and he's known as the crying prophet. He's always crying, and you can see that he's copying in a book all the artwork that was destroyed in the buildings, and you can see the buildings were destroyed many times before. It wasn't the first time, and he's known as the weeping prophets, and he's crying because they destroyed all these ancient works. So when you finish reading this backwards, this is going to blend right on into here, and this is going to read both ways, and this will blend right on into here. So I like to read it like this, and sometimes they'll give me a clue up here, or sometimes a clue here to help. But from the remaining, from the yell is constellations, the gods of constellations. The remaining yell to call I all. That he named all the constellations. And call to mark, or and call, and this is backwards here, and call the new empty. The empty is the word they use for death, they give it, but I don't think there was a word for death in ancient Egypt. It was just empty carcass. There was no killing the spirit. The new empty moon, from the new empty moon to a new moon with no light, empty, to raise in the shamim, in the heavens. And this is the planets, the spirit's motion. MIM is motion, the SM is spirits, in the spirit's motion. So it sounds like he's calling out 12 of them to have a name of a constellation, and also share that name with a new moon of the month. And then backwards it says from James into raise the noom talk to. This probably the spoken name, the noom talk to the mammal wasser bears. And this is in Jerome and in the German Bible, wasser, that's the word for water. The mammal water bears would be a hippopotamus, probably in Egypt. The hippopotamus was the constellation of the summer there. The mammal water bears. From that, the water in motion, from the works from in raised to that, from chair to the it's chair of the arch, it's chair in to raise to lam. And that's where it helps me sometime. This above is above when it's read backwards, is to loom over. And then back to here. From that to bind the arch. So this James here, from James in. James is an ancient word, not just a name, but it means following. If your son was a junior, he would also be a James. He's following. From the James, from the following into raise. And then in the Greek here, it's we possess, or see to possess. The see what to. They dole on. To see connected through the paints. The homeojoma. There's a homo sounds like a man there. But we see the wash, the homeojoma wash, and the wash, like I say, the wash is a color, and it's also a cycle, a beginning end cycle. Into the or ano. Into the or of the anos is the sun. The or of the anno, the sun's years, annuals. And the wash in the G, and G is quite possibly earth. The Gaia was the ancient word for it. In the G, and Kato is to give writings, to give the knowledge of writings, K-A-T, to give knowledge of writings, to give knowledge to the wash in the toys. And toys are probably whatever's in their hand at the time, the cane and the whip and the bell. To the days in the upocado. The upocado of this gist. The gist was the two different meanings. The upocado, and that certainly sounds like the hippopotamus too, because the hippopotamus always got that gator on his back. The representing the summer is a hippopotamus with a gator on his back. So it took me 2.5 hours to load that last movie to YouTube. I'm going to show you this before I cut this off in case I don't get back here. In case something should happen, but this is what really tripped me out, is this lasso here. And this is the ancient symbol for Leo. And you see up here the lasso, L-S-U-A, the lasso, in vain. You see it twice here, the lasso in vain. And then you see down here, vain is Mateo. And so this is the Greek spelling of Matthew. And what lasso has to do with Matthew is in the first 4 books of the New Testament. You got them 4 disciples writing books. There's only in one of them, only in the book of Matthew, did they write about Jude hanging himself. It was only in the book of Matthew. But that helps to date. You see here when this was made, you see Leo was over here, but not necessarily Leo. Their form stays, but the constellations change with the Ouroboros, and so that helps to date this, because Leo was here at this time, and now Leo's over here, but you see Matus, the noose, is still over here. And so the symbol wasn't necessarily Leo. The Leo was the lion. And the noose is always going to be here. It's always hung over. It's always hung over at the top. It's always going to remain here, even though Leo would move around. So you can see at this time, this is when it was first done, and Leo was here. And you can see that this was an age later. And then this was another age later, before Leo ended up over here, with his sign still over here with Matu. Alright, I'm going to see if I can get this loaded faster than 2.5 hours. I don't know what's up. It started loading fast last time, and then they just shut down. Alright, good day, folks.